Wow. Well, Lewis also revealing some other stuff during the break. Can we talk about the psychic medium thing?
Sure.
Somehow we got into a discussion about psychic mediums and seances and contacting the dead. And I haven't even processed this really, ladies and gentlemen, because Lewis just sprung this on me. Lewis says he asked me if I think psychic mediums exist, if they're for real. In other words, can we contact people who are dead? And Lewis
along with other things like predicting the future and stuff like that.
And Lewis believes in that all of this stuff is reasonable and exists. I mean, in what sense? So do you believe that when a psychic says, sit down with me and we'll talk to your great-grandfather from who knows where and we'll find out what he has to say to you if he's watching over you, you believe that that's legitimate?
I don't know if an instance like that is really how it would work.
So what instances could be legitimate for you?
I believe that people can tell the future.
How?
I don't know how they do it.
That would imply that the future has been predetermined, right?
Kind of, yeah.
So in other words, we have no free will. Everything's already set. If somebody can know the future, then it must already be set.
In a way, right.
So you don't believe people have free will?
Well, it's kind of like you've already made the decisions.
Okay, can you make sense out of this for me, Natan? I'm not completely sure I follow Lewis here.
Well, what I would say is what he's saying in some sense goes contrary to the known laws of quantum mechanics, where the future is not completely predetermined, and there are an almost infinite amount of possibilities as to what can happen.
Lewis is not going to be restricted by the liberal bias of quantum mechanics and the laws of physics. Lewis is not going to be constrained by those things.
But let me ask you this.
Natan, of course, has never had any schooling or training in any type of physics or
I
quantum
think he's
mechanics.
taken college-level physics and you haven't, to be completely honest.
Well, I mean, physics is a broad term.
I'm biased in favor of facts.
Okay, so what
true.
were you going to say to Lewis? You were going to propose a question.
Well, I mean, apart from him saying that he believes it, what evidence is there, material evidence, like, for example, that it's been tested, that someone can predict the future,
You have to look up individual cases of some of the more well-known psychics that have come and gone.
Well, Lewis has faith, I think is the way to say it, right? I mean, in other words, you haven't tested this. You just have faith in the same way that somebody...
I have seen firsthand someone predict the future.
Tell me that story, please.
Okay. One night at the rink back in the day. Okay, we were at a skating rink at the local mall. And one of my friends came up to me and said, my girlfriend just had a premonition. She just said someone's going to get hurt pretty bad here.
Okay.
And she was really freaked out about it because she didn't know who it was. Literally 15 minutes to half an hour later, someone broke their leg really bad up there. And how is there any other explanation for that other than she had a genuine premonition about someone getting hurt?
Natan, go ahead.
Pure coincidence.
No.
Yes.
No.
If your girlfriend had said that and nobody had gotten hurt, you would be like, "Oh man, my girlfriend's crazy." And yet that happens a lot. A lot of crazy people say crazy things, and sometimes what they say is correct by some coincidence.
No. See, Natan is someone who has never looked at any evidence of psychics or anything like this, and
yeah, I've never looked at evidence for anything.
Is so far on the spectrum here. Okay, you've got like the crazy religious zealots on one side, Natan's so far on the other side that there's just nothing in between.
I'm not. I'm
Natan's
only an
point of view is
extremist.
way too extreme.
How am I? No, let's continue.
No.
Wait a second.
David,
Hold on
I
a
want
second.
you. I want you to address what I just said. What is your explanation?
No, one instance when we were talking about billions of people over millions of years, yeah, people are going to predict things. Sure. Listen, hold on a second.
No. She didn't sit down and say, you know what? I'm going to make a prediction. I predict that someone will get hurt tonight.
She had a sense. It came to her.
She had a sense.
Okay.
She got incredibly worried.
Yeah.
She genuinely freaked out. She thought it might be her. She thought it... That's what happened.
Listen, now that you guys are talking about bad things happening, I'm getting a little bit anxious that on my drive home today, there's going to be a bad accident on the highway. Okay?
And it's very common before plane flights.
And it's a very common thing people have. If I now see an accident on the way home, did I just have that thought because we're talking about bad things happening?
You just pulled a premonition out of your butt. You didn't pulled something out of your butt. You didn't actually have a premonition.
Okay,
no such thing.
Let's all calm down for a second. I have so much else to get to.
I guarantee you, many of our listeners will side with me on this and say that they have experienced similar things.
Because
that mean
the
that they're
majority
right?
thinks something, does that mean that it's right?
The majority.
Many people thought that
don't
the U.S.
think this.
Many people thought that Saddam Hussein was connected to 9/11. That doesn't mean that it was true. But I want to put a break to this. Let's have Natan explore some of the so-called evidence in specific cases Lewis is talking about. Let's reconvene on this and see if Natan's view has shifted at all. Is that fair?
I have an idea. Why don't we skip that and we'll go. Let's say I present evidence on the show that Lewis hasn't read or that he read right before we filmed the show. And the evidence shows, according to a group of scientists, that there is no scientific evidence in favor of what Lewis is saying. What will Lewis respond to that? Because I can almost guarantee that I can find that.
Okay, will you just say you think you're right anyway?
You bring me material, Natan, I'll bring you material.
Okay.
See, Natan wants to skip what you suggested. So let that be a testament to how far his head is up his butt.
No. Well, what I find interesting is that what Lewis is transmitting here is a very typical anti-intellectual argument, which is that someone who questions what someone says without having evidence is automatically an extremist.
Okay, I need to put a stop. We need to move on.
Okay,
good.
Tempers are starting to flare. I can sense it. Even though everybody's smiling, I can sense tempers are actually starting to flare, and I don't want this to escalate. So let's move on. I have a bunch of other things to get to. And now Lewis all of a sudden is telling me we just have a couple minutes left. Go figure. After we're
Whose fault is that? I didn't bring this up.